Hello, and welcome back to yet another video. This is the 5th episode in which Madara reveals himself as Naruto's grandfather. He injected both his own and Hashirama's cells into Naruto. As a result, Naruto gained strength, awakening the Sharingan and, later, the Rinnegan. To show your support, click the like button and subscribe. Let's get this show started. Konoha was buzzing with a lot of activities. Everyone within the village wore a smile. All problems were forgotten, everyone chose to be happy. It was as if heaven was showering the village with bliss. Business owners were somewhat those who the happiest of all. People from other villages had been inside the village and were buying a lot of things. More visitors meant more profits for them. Despite it being a profitable time, there was still competition with the businesses. Competition did not go away. It was what drove successful businesses. Most people were making bets. The finals of the Chunin exams had arrived. Some people just wanted to enjoy good fights, while some wanted to enjoy the good fights while making some money off the tournament. No one could be blamed really for making bets. It was what made the tournament worthwhile watching. Well, the streets were full a few hours ago, but now they were all quiet. Only a select few could be seen within the streets of the village. The majority of people were gathered at the stadium which the finals are to be held. The stadium was full of people. There were no empty seats, each seat was taken. To some the stadium was a bit too small since not everybody could get inside the stadium. The Fire Lord as well as other leaders of other countries were also present at the stadium. Even some leaders of small villages were present at the stadium, all in the name of the Chunin finals. They were present to observe the next generation of powerful shinobi and also to see the strength of genins from other villages. Konoha had the most genins in the finals. It was good because it also gave them a chance to see if Konoha was still producing strong shinobis as it had been over the previous years. Naruto and the other contestants stood in the middle on the stadium where all could see them. They were the main attraction of the finals. Everyone had come to watch them battle, to see their prowess as genins, to see if they had what it took to become Chunin. They were also representing their villages. Performing well would bring glory to their villages, at the same time performing below par would surely take a bite on the image of their villages. Potential customers and allies were watching. It was for the benefit of their villages to do well in front of them. Each of them had trained hard for the past month, readying themselves for the finals. Each was determined to win. It was obvious in each of the contestants' face. Nobody wanted to lose in front of the whole stadium. It would be hurting to a person's pride to lose while everybody was watching. Especially if one bragged about being a victor at the end of the tournament. Naruto stood with his hands crossed on his chest with an impassive look on his face. Nothing much had changed with him, only his hair had grown just an inch long. Naruto's hair grew at a faster rate while he kept himself hidden at the hideout than when he was at a place where the sun was welcomed. His hair still covered his right eye. He had trained a bit during the last weeks. What he had been doing most was perfecting his ninjutsu arsenal and better control over his Manjikyu Sharingan. He had yet to be a master of the Sharingan. He did not train his speed, he figured it was fine where it was at the moment. Today was one of the days that he would surely remember all his life, the day Konoha became aware of his heritage. It would certainly be worth smiling upon seeing the face of Konoha when becomes aware of his heritage. The Sandaime looked at Naruto with questioning eyes. Beside him was another man who was a Kage like him, the Yondaime Kazekage. Two men wearing ANBU gear stood behind the Kazekage. They were his bodyguards. The Kazekage was present as his genins had reached the finals. Sunagakure was the only great village to have participated in the exams aside from Konoha, who are the hosts. It was understandable, the others did not get well with Konoha. The look the Sandaime was giving Naruto was pushed because Naruto had disappeared from the village for 3 weeks after turning down Jiraiya. He was curious as to where Naruto had gone to after disappearing. He was positive that Naruto was not inside the village those 3 weeks. He had his ANBU search for him and the best sensors, but none were able to find him. His chakra signature had just disappeared without a trace. and they had not been able to get inside of Naruto's apartment. Not even the Byakugan could see through the walls of the apartment. He had wondered how Naruto was able to make a seal that could make the Byakugan's abilities ineffective. From what he had observed, Naruto showed no mastery in Fuinjutsu. He did not have Jiraiya break the seal, seeing that Naruto would surely notice that they had broken into his apartment. He did not wish to unsettle the blonde any further. Jiraiya suddenly appeared behind the old Hokage with a grin planted on his face. He was to act as the Sandame's bodyguard in duration of the finals. "I told you he would return," Jiraiya said to his former sensei. The Sandame smiled slightly without even looking back at Jiraiya. He had been thinking that Naruto had abandoned the village. Jiraiya had said he was sure that Naruto would return to the village. Jiraiya was indeed right. Naruto had returned today for the finals. "I guess you were right, though I still wonder why he would disappear like that without telling anyone," he said. "Is everything set?" he asked, still smiling. "Yes," Jiraiya replied with a nod. Jiraiya had found out that Orochimaru was planning to invade the village during the finals. They had made preparations to encounter the threat. The Sandame nodded. "Good," he said, his eyes focusing on the arena. "It certainly is lively in here. Don't you agree, Hokage Dano?" The Kazekage suddenly spoke. One could not see his face clearly due to the Kage robe he wore. The Sandame looked at the Kazekage and smiled. "It certainly is." Before the conversation between the two Kages could go further, a man appeared before the Hokage. He had shoulder-length brown hair which hanged about his face with brown eyes. He wore a forehead protector like a bandana, and a standard Jonin outfit and a sunbon in his mouth. "Should I start with the finals, Hokage-sama?" the man asked. The Sandame nodded in approval. All the contestants were already present along with other important people. There was no need to keep the crowd waiting any longer. He was surprised, though, that Kakashi had brought Sasuke in time for the finals. He had thought that the Jonin would be late along with Sasuke. That was why he had made preparations for Kakashi to be looked for if he did not appear in time. He could not be faulted about that, given Kakashi's laid-back attitude. Genma stepped forward and jumped at the middle on the arena just in front of the contestants. He smiled at them before looking back at the crowd, which had become settled. "Welcome everyone," he said loudly for everyone to hear him. "My name is Genma Shiranui, proctor of the finals. I would like to welcome you all to Konoha's Chunin selection exam finals." Genma yelled out to the crowd, who welcomed his words with cheers. "We will now begin with the matches between the contestants that have worked hard and reached the finals of this tournament," Genma said, and made his way over to the proctor's seat. He looked at the contestants of the first match: Uzumaki, Naruto, Hyuga, Neji. "The rest of the contestants, please go back to the contestants' booth." The rest of the contestants left the arena. Sasuke shot Naruto a glance before leaving. He had trained hard and gotten strong during his time with Kakashi. He wanted to test the power he had attained against Naruto. Naruto was someone he was sure would give him a good fight. He had always wanted to fight Naruto. The exams had brought a good chance for him to fight the blonde. Genma looked between Naruto and Neji. Naruto still had his impassive expression. Neji had the same expression as Naruto. "The rules are the same as the ones that applied during the preliminaries," Genma said. "First match of the Chunin exam finals, Uzumaki Naruto versus Hyuga Neji." Genma yelled, "Begin." He yelled, motioning with his hands for the genins to begin the first match. Naruto unfolded both his hands from his chest. Before the exams, Zetsu had told him something he had taken into account. Genins did not give him a match. Only a select few could land a hit on him. He had always ended a match quickly because it annoyed him dragging himself against someone who can't land a hit on him. Zetsu had told him that if he did not want to get bored with fights, he should at least play with his opponents. Or he would get bored with most of the fights he fought. Zetsu was basically telling him to give his opponents false hope and then crush that hope mercilessly. It was the same tactic Orochimaru used. But Orochimaru had a tendency to underestimate his opponents. It was a blunder he would hope to avoid given his current level of power. The crowd began to mutter in anticipation. Some were picking who would win the match. Some were gunning for the Hyuga prodigy, while a select few gunned for Naruto to win. The air in the arena was thick as Neji stared at Naruto blankly. He was confident he could win the match. He was a prodigy after all, and anyone who was fated against him was fated to lose. A clone puffed into existence beside Naruto. He took a few steps back and sat down Indian style with his eyes closed. Zetsu's advice weighed down a bit, but he would test his opponent's strength with a clone before fighting himself. He would rather not waste his energy fighting someone who could not defeat his clone. If Neji could defeat his clone easily, he would have his fun just as Zetsu had advised him. Fighting Neji would give him a chance to experiment. The clone Naruto had made was a solid clone. It had little chakra as Naruto did not want it to drag the fight for too long. Neji seemed insulted by Naruto's actions. Anyone would have been insulted. "What is this? Aren't you going to fight me?" Neji asked, looking at the real Naruto. Naruto stayed as he was while his clone spoke. "I will, but that is if you defeat me." "I'm just a clone, one hit and I will dispel," the clone stated impassively. The clone's words drew question marks all over the stadium. People were wondering if it was just arrogance to say something like that. Neji was a prodigy, and he could surely defeat a mere clone. None felt more insulted than Neji. But the Hyuga was able to contain his anger. He did not think that Naruto would have the guts to do something nor say something like that. He was not expecting it. But he would not be shown up by someone who was once considered a deadlast. "Byakugan!" Neji yelled as veins around his white eyes bulged. Neji ran towards the real Naruto, ignoring the clone. He could not waste time with the clone when he could fight the real person. What Naruto had done was an insult to his skills and his pride as a shinobi. To make him look like he was not worth an effort to fight and have him fight a clone instead was degrading. He could not allow anyone make him sink any lower than that. Naruto stopped Neji in his tracks by standing in his way. If he wanted to make the real one fight, he had to defeat the clone. With a fighting style of the Hyuga can, his speed would have to keep his distance because a single hit from Neji would destroy him. He was faster than Neji, that would prove to be an advantage to him, but he was not as fast as the real one. Fighting a Hyuga was not a good thing for a clone. The chances of being destroyed in a single direct hit were high. Neji glared at the clone before raising his palm, which was glowing with chakra. He tried to hit the clone Naruto at the chest. The clone jumped back, dodging the blow. Neji wasted no time. He dashed at the clown, making it jump away from him again. "Are you going to keep running away from me?" Neji asked while getting into his clan's taijutsu style, the Gentile fist. The clone responded by charging at Neji. It swung its right leg when it had reached the genin. Neji crouched down to avoid the kick and raised his palm to try hitting the clone. The clone disappeared suddenly and appeared behind Neji. Neji spun around quickly to block the oncoming punch sent towards him by the clone. "The Byakugan gives me clear view of the battlefield. I can see your attacks," Neji stated, his hand still blocking Naruto's punch. The clone responded by making a distance between itself and Neji. It looked at the real Naruto for a second. A second was what Neji needed as he suddenly appeared before the clone, hitting it with his palm and sending a chakra pulse at the clone's chest, making it disappear in a puff of smoke. But not before saying something more to itself than to Neji. "I let my guard down." Neji smirked and turned around facing Naruto. Naruto was already standing up, looking at Neji blankly. "I have defeated your clone easily." "It did nothing but delay the inevitable," Neji said arrogantly. Naruto gave no response to Neji's words. Neji got back into his taijutsu stance. "Fate has deemed that you will lose against me. You were once considered a deadlast at the academy, but now you are not. I don't believe that you are no longer a deadlast. You are still a deadlast running away from his fate, but no one can escape fate, as fate cannot be changed." Neji spoke impassively. "What you are now is a mask hiding what you once were called at the academy, a deadlast. I will defeat you today and remove that mask exposing who you truly are, a dead last, Neji said, believing that he could defeat Naruto and remove his mask. Naruto responded by holding a single hand seal. Fire release, great fireball, Naruto muttered as he breathed out a large fireball that sped at Neji. The fireball was twice as big as that which Sasuke could make. Neji, seeing that if the jutsu hit him he would be toast, literally, made a quick escape without getting hurt. Sasuke had wide eyes upon seeing Naruto do his favorite jutsu with one-hand seal. It bothered him greatly that Naruto could do that jutsu better than him. He had never seen Naruto do that jutsu. Naruto had never shown any skill to use ninjutsu before. Performing the fireball jutsu with a single hand seal meant that he was accustomed to doing the jutsu and had mastered it. It infuriated him. He was an Uchiha. All Uchihas were supposed to be masters of the great fireball. The jutsu had originated from the Uchiha clan after all. It was unacceptable to see someone do the jutsu better than he could. So he is going to reveal his true power, the Sandaime thought with a smile. He too was a bit surprised that Naruto could perform the fireball jutsu with a single hand seal. It would not have been surprising had it been an Uchiha. Uchiha clan had a natural affinity to fire release, so it would not be surprising. This is certainly turning out to be interesting. I heard that Uzumaki did not display any skill in ninjutsu. But seeing him perform a jutsu like that makes me curious, the Kazekage said to the Hokage, curiosity dripping from his tone. He was wondering why Naruto did not use any jutsu at the Forest of Death. Both Jiraiya and the Hokage nodded but offered no words. They just wanted to watch what Naruto could do. Back at the fight, after dodging the fireball, Neji appeared several feet away from the jutsu. Naruto suddenly appeared before Neji. Neji was shocked as he was caught off guard. He had not been expecting Naruto to attack him after sending the fireball jutsu at him. He had not even seen Naruto move. You are really annoying when you start talking, Naruto stated impassively. Neji had been expecting him to attack him given that he had been caught off guard. If Naruto had attacked when he had appeared before him, he would have hit him since he was in no position to defend. He was not a bit curious as to why Naruto did not try to land a blow on him. Neji glared at Naruto for saying he was annoying. He smirked. You had an opportunity to let a hit on me, but you did not use it. Such an opportunity will not come again, and I will make you regret it, Neji said impassively. His palm rushed at Naruto's left shoulder. Naruto shifted aside to avoid Neji's hit. Looking at Neji's face, he was positive that Neji was not going to stop with his attacks. Neji tried hitting his right shoulder. Naruto dodged, forcing Neji to try to hit another target. Naruto dodged all of the attacks while his eyes were firmly on Neji. He might not have worked on his speed before the finals, but he was still fast. His speed was the reason Neji could not land a hit on him. Naruto jumped back, creating a distance between himself and Neji. He was doing his best to avoid being hit by Neji's attacks. It would be rather troubling if he were to have his chakra paths blocked. Neji's strikes aimed at blocking his chakra paths. If his chakra paths were blocked, it would make him immobile. But at least for him, for a moment, having his chakra paths blocked was something he could deal with. Neji ran at Naruto at a faster speed than before. His hands were still glowing with light blue chakra. To his shock, Naruto's hands began to glow with chakra. One had to have good chakra control to be able to do what Naruto had done. Neji had been moving at a faster speed than Naruto had thought he would. But it did not mean that he could not handle it. Naruto blocked Neji's attempt to hit him at the chest with his hand. It was laced with chakra to prevent its chakra pathway from being blocked. Naruto continued on to block Neji's attacks for 4 minutes straight. He only received 2 hits on both his shoulders, but he dealt with it quickly by forcing chakra to pass through the blocked pathway. It was a rather uncomfortable process. But other than that, he had no injuries or bruises. Neji, on the other hand, was slightly worn out. He was also frustrated because he had failed to give Naruto an injury. All his attempts to hit Naruto had been fruitless. Naruto suddenly gripped Neji's right hand. He held it tightly, making Neji wince. Naruto spun around along with Neji. Neji spun around in air while his hand was held by Naruto. He knew that Naruto was going to release the hold on his hand. But if Naruto did that, it would send him flying. Naruto let go of Neji's hand. But before Neji was thrown away from him, he hit Naruto's right hand, making it immobile. Neji was sent crashing towards the wall. He recovered quickly, but his body slightly bruised and his clothes slightly tattered. He got up and looked at Naruto. His eyes could see that Naruto's hand was immobile because he had blocked its chakra pathways. Your right hand is immobile now. With only one usable hand left, I will easily remove that mask you wear, Neji said with a smirk. Crowd Sakura looked down at the stadium. Beside her were Kiba, Shino, Hinata, Ino, Tintin, and the three Jonin senseis of Team 7, 8, 10, and Team Guy, Hatake Kakashi, Yuhi Kurenai, Asuma Sarutobi, and Mato Guy. Doesn't Neji realize that Naruto is not wearing a mask and the dead last was the mask? Sakura asked, particularly to no one. I don't think he does, Ino replied, her eyes firmly at the battlefield. The Jonin just continued watching, each with different thoughts in their heads. Kakashi was wondering about something. Naruto did not seem to be fighting the way he usually did. Normally Neji would have been lying somewhere with a broken body at this given. But the fight had been going on for a while and still Naruto had not landed a hit on Neji. To trained eyes one could tell that it was not because he could not, but because he did not want to. Kurenai saw Kakashi's thoughtful expression. What is it, Kakashi? Something seems to be wrong here. Naruto is stronger than Neji, that much I know, but why he is not ending the fight is making me curious. I have watched Naruto fight many times, and he never plays when he is fighting someone with genin strength, Kakashi replied. Kiba responded before Kurenai could respond. What are you talking about, Kakashi-sensei? Can't you see that Neji has Naruto on the defensive? He said. After Naruto had humiliated him at the preliminaries, he had learned to resent the blonde. Naruto had beaten him like he was a fly. Guy shook his head. Naruto seems to be holding back for some reason. He is on the defensive because he wants to, not because Neji is forcing him, Guy stated, observing the fight. Why? He did not seem to be capable of holding. Back at the preliminaries, Kurenai asked. It is most likely he is just playing with Neji. But that would be out of character for him, Kakashi said. Let's just watch and see what happens, he said, getting the Jonins to nod in agreement. Back to the fight, Naruto sighed inwardly and forced chakra on his right hand to open up the blocked chakra pathways. He was better at controlling his chakra because of his Senju DNA. Senju were known to have had perfect control over their chakra. It was easy to unblock his chakra pathways. He disappeared and appeared in front of Neji. He did not attack just as he did last time. Neji smirked as he stared at Naruto. He would make the blonde rue his choice of not attacking him while he could. You are within my range, Neji stated. 8 trigrams 64 palms, Neji said, his fingers going at Naruto's body. 2 palms, Neji said as his hands hit Naruto. 4 palms, for hits at Naruto's shoulders, blocking his tenketsu points. He hit Naruto with his strikes until he reached 64 strikes. Naruto had taken each strike without trying to block. Remarkably, he was still standing, only his shoulders were slumped and his eyes were staring down at the ground. I have hit you with 64 strikes. Your body should not be able to move. I suggest you stay down and accept what fate has decided, Neji said. You were fated to lose this match and thus you have lost. Naruto's eyes left the ground and traveled towards Neji. Neji spoke again, seeing Naruto look at him. Give up. You have no power to defeat me, Neji said, believing that his opponent was weaker than him. It was not fate that you hit me, Naruto corrected. You only hit me because I wanted you to, as I wanted to see what would happen if your technique hit me. The whole stadium was silenced by Naruto's proclamation. Some hung their mouths open while others blinked several times and a few just raised their brows. It was just unbelievable to them. No one would dare take on those hits just to see what would happen. That would be unless he was shot of a few brain cells. You are lying. Even if you let yourself be hit, the damage is done. I can see your tenketsu points are blocked with my eyes, Neji said, not believing that Naruto had let himself be hit. Naruto released a wave of chakra, forcing his tenketsu points to open. The chakra he released picked up debris around him for a moment before the dust cleared. Naruto stood still, his tenketsu points now opened with his eyes fixed on Neji. Naruto closed his eyes and opened them, revealing a fully matured Sharingan. A Sharingan he had managed to keep hidden from everyone within the village. Well, the crowd could only see his left eye as his right was hidden by his hair. Everyone within the stadium was shocked. In everyone's wildest dreams, they had never imagined Naruto with a Sharingan, the Dujutsu of the Uchiha clan. It was a sight that many had never expected to see. Some did not actually care, they just wanted to see a good fight. Visitors from other villages were greatly surprised as they had heard that the Uchiha clan was massacred. Only a few outside of Konoha knew that there was one survivor, Uchiha Sasuke. While others were shocked, Sasuke was both shocked and infuriated. Naruto was no Uchiha. It meant that if Naruto had the Sharingan, it had to have been implanted. He refused to accept people who implanted his clan's Dujutsu on themselves. It was different with Kakashi because Kakashi had his given to him by his dying friend. He did not know where Naruto got his. Naruto Sasuke growled to himself with his Sharingan activated. Unlike Naruto's, his had yet to fully mature, it only had 2 tomos in each eye. Everyone beside him could see he was shaking in anger. Sasuke was about to storm into the battlefield and demand answers from Naruto, but Shikamaru quickly restrained the young Uchiha with his shadows. He was also curious, but storming in there would only disturb Naruto's match. He was not sure if Naruto would welcome someone disturbing his match. "Let go of me, Shikamaru!" Sasuke yelled, trying to break free from his restraints. "This is troublesome," Shikamaru said, his hands held together as he did not let loose of his jutsu. "Calm down, Sasuke. Naruto will come back here after his match. You will get to question him then." "No, I want answers now," Sasuke yelled out again. The situation was becoming somewhat comical as the other participants were snickering at Sasuke's frustrations. Kakashi seemed to have known what was happening as he suddenly appeared in the contestants' booth. He had figured that Sasuke would overreact seeing Naruto wield a Sharingan. Kakashi touched Sasuke's shoulder. "Calm down, Sasuke. I'm sure Naruto has a good explanation." He tried calming his student. Sasuke glared at Kakashi, but he was no longer trying to escape from his restraints. "Did you know?" he demanded. "No," Kakashi replied as he shook his head. Sasuke said nothing. His eyes traveled back to Naruto as he settled for glaring at the blonde. Kage Booth, the Kazekage, had wide eyes. His eyes were bigger than the Hokage's, who also had wide eyes. It was unbelievable that Naruto had the Sharingan. He quickly got over his shock and laughed maniacally inwardly. Naruto was proving to be quite an interesting person. The Sandaime and Jiraiya were obviously shocked as everyone else. They had not even suspected that Naruto could have the Uchiha clan Dujutsu. The Sandaime could not believe that Naruto had hit something that from him and from the whole village. "I thought there was only one survivor of the Uchiha clan massacre, Hokage Dano," the Kazekage spoke, snapping the Sandaime out of his thoughts. "There is only one survivor," the Hokage replied with his eyes firmly placed on Naruto. "Then how come Naruto has the Sharingan?" "I don't know. I don't really know," the Sandaime Hokage replied, shaking his head. Anyone could see that he was being honest. The Kazekage decided to drop it, seeing that the Hokage knew nothing. Back to the fight, Naruto ran at Neji at Jonin level speed. He reached the Genin and swung his right leg high, trying to kick Neji at his temple. Neji crossed both his hands and blocked the kick. The kick had much power to send any Genin flying, but Neji was not just any Genin. He was only pushed back a bit, but told himself never to try and block another kick from Naruto. Naruto brought his feet down and raised his left leg waist level high. He tried kicking Neji at his waist, but Neji jumped back to avoid being hit. Naruto stopped with his attacks for a moment and stood still as if he was strategizing. The crowd had now gotten over their shock and were watching the fight with anticipation. It was now proving to be interesting as Naruto was now attacking Neji. Neji seemed to be blocking Naruto's attempts. Neji ran at Naruto with his right arm stretched forward. He tried hitting Naruto's chest, but Naruto sidestepped the attack and gripped Neji's arm. Neji swung his free arm trying to hit Naruto. His attempt forced Naruto to let go of his arm and jump back. Naruto dashed towards Neji and seemed to passing him. But he suddenly spun around with his leg swinging at Neji. Naruto kicked Neji on his face, sending the genin flying away. Neji recovered quickly by flipping in midair. But when he landed down the ground, a hard kick to the chest welcomed him and sent him crashing towards the wall. God! Neji grunted as he hit the wall hard, creating a dent. Naruto gave the genin an opportunity to recover. The results would be the same regardless of what action he took. Neji got up and glared at Naruto. Naruto hit as hard as Lee. But Lee hit harder because of the weights on his legs. He rushed at Naruto again, but this time with both his hands stretched forward. Hit tried hitting Naruto, but Naruto jumped back. He could predict Neji's moves before they reached him. And because he was faster than Neji, it became impossible for Neji to hit him. Naruto blurred out of sight and appeared before Neji. With almost 360-degree view of the battlefield, Neji was able to see Naruto. He turned around quickly but was unable to block or dodge a kick to his chest. The kick connected with Neji's chest and sent him flying. Naruto appeared above Neji while he was still in the air and brought his hands together. He smacked the genin down the ground. Neji was sent crashing down like a bullet. He hit the ground hard and created a crater. Neji's crash created debris where he had crashed. Remarkably, when the debris cleared, Neji was still standing, but his body was bruised and he was bleeding, albeit not profusely. He seemed to be out of breath as he was breathing heavily. He did not like where things were going, but he refused to be beat. Fate could not be changed. Naruto had been fated to be defeated by him, and he would make sure of that. Naruto rushed at Neji and attempted to gut him. Neji dodged the attempt, albeit barely. He was not given time to catch the breath that was escaping him as Naruto appeared in front of him and kneed him on the gut. Neji coughed bodily fluids while clutching his stomach in pain. The crowd was cheering, seeing the turnaround of events. Naruto stared down at Neji, who was now on his knees still clutching his stomach. There is no such thing as fate. Fate is something you created on your own ideals to escape from your miseries, Naruto said, his tone and facial expression never changing. Neji stopped clutching his stomach and glared at Naruto. You know nothing about misery. He spat. My life has been fated to become a servant to the main branch. As far as I could remember, I have been branded with this, Neji said, removing his forehead protector. There was a seal on his forehead. Naruto knew what it was. It's the caged bird seal. I will live with it and die with it. That is my fate. And your fate is to lose to me, Neji said as he tried hitting Naruto in anger. Naruto punched Neji on his face, sending him flying away from him. Neji winced as he felt the pain the punch inflicted on his body. He hit the ground and gathered his strength to get up. He was still breathing heavily and was now bleeding from his mouth. Despite his condition, he got into his taijutsu stance, signifying that he could still fight. Naruto ran towards Neji, but when he reached Neji, he sensed a buildup of chakra from Neji. He did not stop trying to kick Neji, though. Kaiten! Neji yelled as he began to spin furiously, and while he released chakra from his tenketsu points. The chakra he released created a dome of chakra that rotated around him at a fast speed. Naruto's foot hit the spinning chakra and was sent back. He flipped in midair and landed down the ground. That was unexpected, he said to himself. Neji stopped spinning, releasing his defense jutsu. He smirked at Naruto. This is my ultimate jutsu, the ultimate defense jutsu. With this you cannot touch me anymore, he said confidently. Those of the Hyuga clan had wide eyes seeing Neji perform the Kaiten. It was a defense jutsu only taught to the skilled members of the main branch. For Neji to learn the jutsu on his own only proved that he was truly a genius. No one could doubt that he was indeed a prodigy of the Hyuga clan. But despite his skill, he was facing someone who seemed to be beyond his level. Ultimate defense, you say, Naruto said. Shall we test that? The way Naruto spoke made Neji wish he did not say the Kaiten was an ultimate defense. Naruto did a single-hand seal, fire release, great fireball. Another large fireball sped towards Neji faster than the first one. It was just as big as the first. Due to Neji's current condition, he could not escape the jutsu by running away from it. Naruto was aware of that. The only way for Neji to defend himself was to use his Kaiten. Neji saw the fireball coming towards him. Kaiten! He yelled as he activated his defense technique again. Both techniques clashed, but the Kaiten held on. Naruto ended his jutsu, allowing Neji to do the same. Neji was breathing heavier than before and was barely standing. The Kaiten was taking a toll on him. The Kaiten had passed Naruto's first test, but barely. Naruto held another single-hand seal again, readying for another jutsu. Fire style, Dragon Flame Caterwall. Naruto yelled as 5 small flame fish-like creatures with 2 large fangs raced at Neji in 5 different directions. It was a jutsu Naruto had learned from Madara. All creatures seek out their targets till they hit. The only way to stop them was to make them hit something. Neji gathered his remaining chakra and called upon the Kaiten again. One by one the flame dragons hit Neji's defense. When each hit, it exploded and the fire it created became one with Neji's rotating dome of chakra. Neji realized this when he felt the heat rise up and stopped spinning to avoid being burned to death by his own jutsu. But he did not get away without suffering slight burns on his clothes and skin. Neji fell on his knees while sweating and breathing heavily. The heat that had surrounded was too intense for him. His chakra was also spent. It is not a perfect defense, thought Naruto to himself. He decided to try another jutsu. He had yet to try it while fighting with someone other than his clones. Neji provided him the opportunity to test the jutsu. He flashed through several hand seals and expanded large amounts of chakra, well to others who did not have much chakra as Naruto had. Fire style, Majestic Flame Destroyer. Naruto breathed out an unimaginable wave of flames that covered the whole space in front of him, reaching the walls of the arena in width. The wave of flames went straight at Neji, who had wide eyes like everyone inside the stadium. Only the Sandaime had seen a fire jutsu that big. Despite it being big, it was not as big enough for Naruto's liking. Still, the flames were powerful enough to incarnate everything they touched. The flames burned everything on their path as they made their way towards Neji's position. The heat of the flames was too intense as everyone close to the battlefield felt the heat. Neji began to fear for his life. He could no longer do the Kaiten. He also could not escape to anywhere. The flames had blocked each path he could take. Backwards was the wall. He could not go anywhere. He closed his eyes as the flames reached him. Naruto ended his jutsu and narrowed his eyes behind him. Genma was holding Neji with both his arms. He had saved the genin, but at some cost. His upper right side of his body was burned by the flames. He knew that if he had allowed Neji to be hit the flames would have burned him to ashes. He was the proctor and could not allow necessary deaths to occur while he watched one ad. Neji was now unconscious. It was because of chakra exhaustion and some shock. He had thought he was going to die. Genma placed Neji down the ground and ignored his burns. He looked at Naruto, who was still in the same position as he was. He had yet to move, only his eyes narrowed at Genma. Genma let loose of a sigh of release after a few moments. When the flames hit him, he thought he too was going to die. But he had made it. It looked like Naruto was trying to kill his fellow genin. First match of the Chunin exam finals is over. Genma trailed off, remembering that the Sandaime had said he would announce the winner of this match. He looked at the Sandaime, nodding for him to speak. The Sandaime stepped forward and cleared his throat. He was going to say something important. The crowd had already been shocked once, but he had to do it for the sake of the village. Naruto turned around. He was the victor of the match. His Sharingan was still activated as he walked towards the contestants' booth. No one was cheering, the stadium was just full of mummers. Winner of the first mock Namikaze Naruto, the Sandaime said in a loud voice. Naruto stopped walking and narrowed his eyes at the Sandaime. His Sharingan morphed into its Manjikyu form for a second before returning back to normal. That was something he was not expecting the Sandaime to say. He had figured the old man would eventually announce his other heritage to Konoha, but did not think he would do it any time soon. The Sandaime might have done it to free himself from the secret, but there was another ulterior motive. Naruto knew that. When Konoha came to accept that he was indeed the son of the Yondaime Hokage, they would start to love him. When loved by the villagers, he would have no reason to abandon the village. What? Some yelled out in disbelief upon hearing that Naruto was a Namikaze. The thought that he wielded the Sharingan had escaped their minds. Others stared at Naruto with wide eyes, cursing themselves for not seeing it. There was only one person to have had bright blonde hair and blue eyes, the Yondaime Hokage, Minato Namikaze. Naruto was like a chibi Minato, and yet they could not see it. It would now explain why the Yondaime had chosen Naruto as the Jinchuriku of the Kyuubi. The majority of people thinking those thoughts were the ones to have never hated Naruto, while those few that still hated him refused to believe it. Despite their refusal to believe, one could not deny the resemblance. One woman stood up from her seat and clapped her hands. Soon another person joined her. They were followed by almost everyone at the stadium. Naruto walked away towards the contestants' booth. The only reaction he gave towards the reaction of the crowd was a raised brow. After Naruto had reached the contestants' booth, the clapping of hands and cheers were replaced by mummers. Naruto stopped walking when he saw Sasuke in his way with a death glare. Naruto brushed aside the glare and decided to just walk past Sasuke. Sasuke was not going to let him off without getting answers he needed. Naruto, Sasuke called out, stepping in front of Naruto again. Where did you get that Sharingan? Sasuke demanded. Naruto's face remained impassive. How did you get your Sharingan, Sasuke? Naruto replied with a question. Sasuke, in his current mindset, did not fully understand Naruto's question. Answer me, Naruto. Sasuke yelled, his death glare intensifying. I just did, Naruto responded nonchalantly. Shikamaru spoke before someone got hurt. Calm down, Sasuke, Shikamaru said in his usual bored tone. Naruto answered your question. He asked you how you got your Sharingan. The answer is you awakened it like any other Uchiha. What Naruto is saying is that he awakened his Sharingan, that's how he got it. But leads to more troublesome questions. Shikamaru spoke while other contestants watched on. Awoke? How? You are not an Uchiha. The Hokage just said you are a Namikaze, not Uchiha, Sasuke said while still glaring at Naruto. Naruto had no time to play the interrogi with Sasuke. Believe what you will, but my eyes were not implanted, he said. Now then, get out of my way or I will make you. His face remained impassive, but the tone he used could send chills to anyone. Sasuke stepped aside and allowed Naruto to pass. Naruto wanted to watch the next match. Sasuke looked away from Naruto, emotions welling on his features as thoughts ran rampant within his head. Naruto had just said his Sharingan was not implanted, meaning he had to have Uchiha blood running through his veins. His father was not an Uchiha, which if he truly had Uchiha DNA in his body, he got it from his mother. Still, the thought of Naruto being an Uchiha brought him a lot of emotions. Temari eyed Naruto with thoughts running through her head. Being the son of the Yondaime Hokage made Naruto someone like royalty. But judging from what she had seen of him so far, he did not seem to act like one nor tried grabbing people's attention because he was the son of the Yondaime Hokage. In fact, he looked distant, unattached to anything, as if he did not care about anything else around him. Kage Booth, well, that was certainly interesting, the match itself rather than the secret you have just revealed, Hokage Dano, the Kazekage spoke, clearly interested. Naruto possessed far greater skill than he let people believe. His interest in Naruto had surely grown. The Sandaime nodded. The match was truly interesting. It was not only the fight, but the things that were revealed during the match. You certainly have a skilled genin in Naruto, Hokage-dun, the Kazekage said again honestly. The Hokage smiled. Naruto was certainly interesting. Naruto did fire-style jutsu at a higher level. He was sure Naruto would give Itachi a run for his money when it came to fire-style jutsu. He is truly skilled, he finally said. I'm surprised that you could hide something like this from the village, though judging from Naruto's reaction he already knew of it and did not seem too happy that you announced his heritage. The Kazekage said, trying to act as normal as possible. He already knew that Naruto was the son of the famed Yellow Flash, the man who stood in his way of becoming Hokage. Sarutobi did not respond. He had his reasons for keeping the truth away from Konoha. He did not have to explain his actions to another Kage of another village. I believe you now, Sensei. He truly is skilled just like his father. Jiraiya spoke. Now I have to force him to become my apprentice given his skills, Jiraiya said with a grin. Sarutobi responded by chuckling slightly at Jiraiya's words. The Sannin had not entirely believed that Naruto was a skilled and capable shinobi. He had said he would believe if he saw with his own eyes, and now he had seen with his own eyes. Naruto was skilled enough to be called a prodigy. He could not miss the opportunity to be a sensei to someone like Naruto. He put much effort into making Naruto his apprentice. Genma looked at the burns on his body and winced, remembering how it hurt when he got burned. He looked at the crowd and smiled. Second match of the Chunin exam finals, Sabaku no Gaara vs. Rock Lee. Genma said aloud. Both contestants made their way to the battleground. Genma looked between Lee and Gaara. He could tell that the two were going to give the crowd a good match. Are both fighters ready? He asked, earning a nod from Lee while Gaara gave no response. His face just remained emotionless. Begin. He yelled and jumped to his seat where a medic was waiting for him to take care of his burns. One could tell Gaara was a bit excited about the match because the moment Genma said the match could begin, sand shot out from his gourd and swirled around him. Lee steadied his opponent for a moment. Guy had told him that his opponent was dangerous and he should be careful. He had also been told to take off his weight should the situation require him to do so. He did not have to ask for permission to take off his weights this time. Lee got into his taijutsu stance and motioned for Gaara to come at him with his right hand. Gaara wasted no time as his head shot towards Lee at fast speeds. Lee jumped back to avoid the sand. When he landed on the ground, the sand was waiting for him. He was forced to use his great reflexes to avoid the sand from catching him. Guy had warned him to avoid being caught by the sand at all costs. Lee rushed at Gaara, who had been in the same position since the match began. He attacked Gaara on his left side by attempting to kick him. Sand blocked Lee's foot, preventing him from hitting Gaara. Lee blurred to Gaara's right, attempted to kick the sand genin again. The sand protected Gaara, again, forcing Lee to jump back. Sand shot towards Lee at a fast pace. Lee readied himself, and when the sand reached him and attempted to kick it away. A mistake on his part, as a part of the sand was blown away by the force of his kick and a part was not. The part that remained almost wrapped itself around his leg. He did enough to blur away from sight. Lee landed on the ground and steadied Gaara. The sand made it difficult for him to hit his opponent. He needed speed to bypass the defense. Lee ran towards Gaara with a plan in thought. He appeared in front of Gaara looking as if he wanted to punch the genin. Gaara's sand tried to wrap itself around Lee, only for Lee to disappear and appear behind Gaara. Lee swung his leg attempting to kick Gaara from behind. But just as he was about to land a hit, the sand appeared and blocked his kick. Lee jumped away from Gaara. Bypassing Gaara's sand was proving to be harder than he had thought it would be at his current speed level. The crowd was cheering as the fight was certainly entertaining even when none had landed a hit on one another. At the contestants' booth, Kenkuro had a wide smile admiring Gaara's sand. No one had ever landed a hit on Gaara. Gaara was untouchable with his sand, and there was no way Lee would be able to touch Gaara. Well, that was according to him. Lee appeared in front of Gaara and attempted to punch Gaara with the strongest punch he could master. The sand tried to block his punch, but the punch broke through. Just as it was about to make contact with Gaara, another wave of sand appeared in its path and this time blocked Lee's punch. Lee did not stop with just a powerful punch. He spun around, swinging his leg, bringing forth his most powerful kick. Gaara brought forward his sand to block the kick. But the sand did not stand a chance against the power behind Lee's kick. Lee's foot marched towards Gaara's face, but again, just as it was about to hit, more sand blocked its path. But the results were different this time. Even the sand shielding Gaara, he was sent flying away towards the wall. Gaara's sand created a cushion before he hit the wall. Gaara smiled maniacally at Lee and walked a bit towards Lee before he stopped. He moved his sand with his hand this time. When he was moving it with his hands, it was moving at a faster speed than before. A wave of sand almost wrapped Lee from behind, but Lee disappeared from sight, dodging the sand, albeit barely. Lee rushed at Gaara, dodging waves of sand that were trying to wrap themselves on him. Lee dodged each sand attack skillfully. When he reached Gaara, he was unable to attack the Jinchuriki as he found large amounts of sand waiting for him. Lee quickly disappeared from view, avoiding the sand. If Lee was going to break through Gaara's defense, he would have to step up his game. Lee looked at his sensei as if asking for permission. Guy nodded, making Lee smile. Despite Guy having already given him permission to take off his weights during his fight, it felt right asking for permission again. He took off the weights on his legs and held them with both his hands. Gaara only raised an eyebrow, wondering what his opponent was up to. Lee let go of the weights. Boom, they hit the ground and shook the stadium slightly. The weights created 2 craters on the battlefield. Almost everyone had wide eyes at the effects of Lee's weights. It was just unimaginable how a young lad like Lee could be able to wear such heavy weights and still move as fast as he had been moving so far in his match against Gaara. Guy just smiled proudly at his student. It was not easy for Lee to be able to wear such heavy weights, but through hard work they did it. It was his efforts, along with Lee's dedication to being the best taijutsu user, that made Lee became what he was today, a shinobi he was proud to call his student. Lee took a taijutsu stance with a serious expression on his face. Lee vanished from his spot. Only a select few saw him move. The others just blinked a few times, looking around the battlefield. Their efforts were rewarded as Lee appeared behind Gaara. Gaara turned around with wide eyes, showing his shock at Lee's speed. Lee swung his right leg at Gaara. Gaara's sand was unable to react fast enough to leap into his defense. Lee's kick connected with Gaara's face. Gaara was sent flying, but before he could hit the walls, Lee appeared above him facing down and kicked him hard on the face. Gaara crashed down the ground, creating a crater. Lee landed on the ground gracefully and waited for his opponent to recover. Gaara stood up from the crater and brushed his fingers against his mouth. He looked at his fingers and saw blood. To some it was most shocking because none had ever seen Gaara bleed before. It was shocking to see that someone had the speed to bypass through Gaara's sand and hurt Gaara. Not even Jonins had been unable to hurt Gaara, but a genin from Konoha had just done it. It was unbelievable. Gaara smiled maliciously. "Blood, my blood," he said to himself, then looked back at Lee. "Mother wants your blood," Gaara said maliciously. "I must feed on your blood to prove my existence and erase yours." Lee looked at Gaara, showing a bit of confusion, but he later shrugged it off and dashed towards Gaara. Only small gusts of winds could be seen upon where he had been standing. A large wall of sand appeared in front of him, blocking his path. Lee jumped up, passing the wall. While he was still in air, he began to rotate furiously towards Gaara. "Konoha Senpu!" Lee yelled as he delivered a spinning kick to Gaara. Gaara's sand came to the rescue and blocked Lee's kick. Lee spun around and attempted to kick Gaara with his other leg, but the sand blocked his kick again. Lee flashed out of sight and appeared behind Gaara. He swung his right hand and delivered a punch at Gaara's face. Gaara had been unable to block due to the speed on the attack. With his full speed, Lee was able to bypass Gaara's defense. The punch sent him flying, but Gaara quickly recovered and landed down the ground gracefully. Lee watched with wide eyes as sand around Gaara's face began to peel off. Gaara's thin layer of sand reformed again on his skin. It was his secondary defense mechanism. Lee gritted his teeth in frustrations. So far, he had not been able to damage Gaara. It was like all his efforts were pointless. To win, he had to risky measures. Lee suddenly blurred out of sight. He was running at his speed's peak. Lee kicked Gaara into air and used Shadow of the Dancing Leaf to get behind Gaara while still in flight. He let loose of his bandages and wrapped it around Gaara, restraining him as gravity began to pull them down. This should end the match, Lee exclaimed confidently. He and Gaara began to rotate furiously while they fell down the ground as a spinning vortex. Gaara hit the ground head first. Lee was also hurt as the technique was a double-edged sword. But Lee, being the user of the technique, received less damage than his opponent. Lee panted as he watched the debris where Gaara was lying. The crowd began to cheer, applauding the technique and also thinking that the match was over. But everyone's celebrations were cut short as Gaara let out a maniacal laughter. Lee could not believe what his eyes were showing him as he watched Gaara stumbled up and stood up with a maniacal grin and blood dripping from his mouth. His sand swirled furiously around him. "I must really drink your blood, mother wants it." Large torrents of sand began to fire at Lee mercilessly. Lee did his best to dodge all of the attacks. But keeping up with Gaara's sand was tiring him. Gaara was sending the sand at Lee tirelessly without even taking a break. With a smile on his face, it was obvious that he wanted to crush Lee with his sand. Lee found himself backed against the arena's battle floor. He was left to only think of defense as Gaara had been attacking him with his sand furiously. A wave of sand appeared in front of him, stretched as if it was welcoming him for an embrace. Gaara grinned and made a fist encasing the sand around Lee. "Subaku Q," Gaara said as his head seemingly wrapped itself around Lee. Nothing happened. There was no blood that fell rain down the ground. Gaara was aware that he did not catch Lee because he did not feel him on his sand. Lee appeared a few feet away from his previous position. Some let out a sigh of relief seeing that the match was not over. "It seems that I cannot defeat as I am," Lee said seriously, looking at Gaara. "Then I must." He trailed off. "First gate. Gate of opening." Lee yelled as the aura around him began to change. "Second gate. Gate of healing." His skin began to change its normal color. "Third gate. Gate of life." "Fourth gate. Gate of pain." "Fifth gate. Gate of limit." Lee yelled. He was surrounded by a blue aura and veins around his body had bulged. Gust of winds picked up where Lee was standing. The crowd was awed at the power Lee was emitting. It was defiantly not the power of your normal genin. "This will surely end it," he said and disappeared. Only Jonins were able to follow his movements. Others did not see him move. Naruto was able to see him. He had his Sharingan activated. He did not deactivate it after his match with Neji. The next thing, the crowd was Gaara in flight. Lee was striking him at inhuman speeds. It gave Gaara no chance to defend himself. Lee suddenly appeared above Gaara, reverse lotus. He yelled as he hit Gaara with a final powerful punch and kick at the same time. Gaara was sent crashing down like a bullet. He hit the ground, creating a large crater. Some with experienced eyes saw that Gaara's gourd turned into sand and created a sand cushion before he hit the ground. Lee landed at the unwelcoming ground harshly due to the use of his technique. He had already closed his gates as he could no longer contain them. His body was bruised and his clothes were tattered. His breathing was labored and he was on his knees as he was unable to stand. The technique used too much power at once and left him without strength. It was why he used it as a last resort. The crowd cheered gracefully at the power of Lee's attack. They thought that it was surely over, as they believed that no one could stand again after crashing down the way Gaara did. The dust cleared, revealing Gaara lying down in a crater. Sand was peeling of his skin and more blood continued to drip from his mouth. His sand had absorbed much of the damage he could have suffered. "Sand coffin," Gaara said with his hand raised while he was still lying down. Lee found himself at the mercy of Gaara's sand. He tried to escape, but his muscles were torn apart and he was out of strength because he had opened 5 gates and used reverse lotus. The sand caught Lee's left leg and hand, crashing them. Arg! Lee screamed in pain as Gaara's sand crushed his hand and leg. He landed on the ground harshly. Gaara got to his feet slowly, looking slightly worn out, but had no significant damage on his body. Gaara chuckled darkly, "Mother will now have your blood." He yelled like a crazed person. Gaara sand short towards an immobile Lee. Guy tensed, knowing that Lee would surely die if Gaara caught him with his sand. In his condition, Lee could not do anything. It was now up to him as a loving sensei to protect his student. He rushed to the stadium to save Lee. He was not alone. A bandaged Genma had the same thoughts as him. Guy was able to get to Lee before Gaara's sand. He took Lee out of the path of the sand while Genma appeared before Gaara. "This match is over," he said sternly. Gaara ignored him and looked over to Guy and Lee. "Why did you save him?" he asked, his features having returned to his emotionless and cold facade. "He is my student, my pride and joy," Guy replied, almost breaking into tears as he walked away, taking Lee to the medics. Lee had pushed himself too far. Opening the gates did damage to his body, and Gaara's last attack did further damage. He feared the worst, looking at his unconscious student, who had passed out because of pain that had gripped him. Genma looked at the murmuring crowd. "Winner, Sabaku no Gaara." The crowd applauded. They had witnessed a truly great match. Gaara silently made his way back to the contestants' booth. He did not need a medic, as he was fine. Naruto was somewhat pleased with what he had seen. Both Gaara and Lee were capable genins. Lee had reached an amazing feat to be able to compete with a Jinchuriki at the level he was. The boy was truly something, possibly the best genin in terms of hard work and dedication. "Will Sabaku no Kankuro and Uchiha Sasuke step forward, please?" Genma called out. Sasuke smiled excitedly and went into the arena. He was finally going to test himself against capable opponents. After watching Gaara fight, he now wanted to him also. Kankuro stepped forward but stopped before reaching the middle of the arena. "Proctor, I forfeit." His words were welcomed with boos all over the stadium. Kankuro seemed not to care about the jeers. The crowd had been waiting for Sasuke to fight. Some had come to the finals just to watch the only survivor of the Uchiha clan. With Kankuro giving up, they were being denied an opportunity to see Sasuke fight and observe what he was capable of. Many saw Sasuke as a genius, as he was the best student at everything he did when he was still at the academy. Genma looked at Kankuro without interest. He thought that if he did not he should have never come to the stadium. Sasuke was now fuming. He wanted to fight and would do anything to get that opportunity. He turned and stared at Kankuro with his Sharingan eyes. "Why? Are you afraid of me?" Sasuke said with a smirk, trying to get Kankuro to reconsider his decision. The crowd seemed to think the same way as Sasuke. However, it had no effect on Kankuro. He turned around and walked away. Sasuke gritted his teeth, seeing that his attempt had failed. He held out his right hand and lightning began to sparkle on his palm. No sooner than later, a sound of chirping birds rang throughout the stadium. Jonins recognized Sasuke's jutsu as Kakashi's trademark assassination jutsu. "Chidori!" Sasuke yelled as he ran towards Kankuro. If Kankuro did not want to fight, he would force him to. Many did not see a problem with Sasuke's actions. In fact, they cheered. Kankuro was alarmed and turned around. He saw the jutsu at Sasuke's hand, widened his eyes. He did not actually think that the brat would go that far. Lucky for him, Genma knew how dangerous the jutsu was. Genma intercepted Sasuke and gripped his right tightly, making him lose control over his jutsu. The Chidori burst into sparkles of lightning before disappearing. Sasuke gave Genma a death glare, but Genma ignored it. He stared at Kankuro. "You are lucky I stopped him. If I had not, that jutsu would have killed you." Kankuro scoffed and walked away, earning more boos from the crowd. "Let me go!" Sasuke yelled as Genma was still holding his arm. Genma ignored Sasuke again and looked back at the crowd. Uchiha Sasuke will proceed to the next round. he said. Kakashi as Sasuke's sensei appeared beside Genma and Sasuke. Genma let go of Sasuke. Kakashi touched Sasuke's shoulder and both disappeared in swirl of leaves. They appeared where the rest of the Konoha 12 were. Genma sighed, "Will Nara, Shikamaru, and Temari step forward, please?" Both contestants walked into the ring. Temari looked like she was the only of the two one to be prepared to fight. Shikamaru had his usual bored expression. Genma looked between both fighters. "Are both fighters ready?" he asked, earning nods from both fighters. Final match of the first round began, he said, and jumped back to his seat. Temari, being the only who seemed to be eager to fight, charged first at Shikamaru. She had seen him fight once and did not think that he could beat her. She thought no believed that she was going to get an easy win. Her large fan was in her hands as she attempted to smack Shikamaru with it. Shikamaru dodged her attempted and landed down as he began to compute ways of winning the match. After a minute, he had already computed several ways to end the match. The fight continued on as Temari showed her skills with a fan. The fan was used to generate powerful wind jutsus. Temari was certainly a skilled wind user, which was no surprise as Suna was famous for breeding wind users. Wind affinity, despite being very powerful, was very rare. Not a lot of people had a natural affinity to wind. It was a joy to see someone such as Temari demonstrates her skills with a fan. While Temari was on the attack, Shikamaru was running around the battlefield dodging Temari's attacks and throwing explosive tags at the girl. Luckily for Temari, none of the explosives tags hit her. She was not once caught in the explosions. Despite dodging most of Temari's attacks, Shikamaru was unfortunate and was hit by one of Temari's attacks. Luckily, for him it did not give him much damage, all did was to give him a few cuts. Shikamaru was also trying to catch Temari with his shadow possession jutsu. He was skillfully trying in the best way he could to catch her. It was most surprising at how hard Shikamaru seemed to be fighting. None had ever seen Shikamaru try anything that hard unless a life was in danger. The results had gone the way Shikamaru had predicted. He finally was able to catch Temari and restrain her with his shadows. He forced her to pick up a kunai and pointed to her neck with his shadows. He was controlling her movements and could make her do whatever that he wanted her to do. Temari had thought that the match was over and she had lost, but Shikamaru ended up forfeiting the match. She was surprised that he could forfeit the match when he was in a position to win. His reasons were that it was too troublesome to continue on, he had little chakra left and he just wanted to get the promotion. Temari could have refused to accept that she was winner of the match, but she accepted it. Her pride as a kunoichi had taken a bite because she did not proceed to the next round because of her skills, but because her opponent had chosen to give up when he had her backed against the wall. The match in whole was rather worth watching. The crowd loved it and cheered at the end despite Shikamaru forfeiting when he could have won the match. Genma stood in the middle of the arena. "We will now take a 20 minutes break before we..." He trailed off as Gaara shunshined into the battlefield. "I don't need a break, let us continue now," Gaara said emotionlessly. Genma sighed and looked at the Hokage as if asking what to do. The Sandaime just smiled at him, telling him to do what he felt was right as the proctor. "Okay, since one of the competitors seems not to need a break, we'll begin the second round," Genma said, earning cheers from the crowd, which seemed not to want the break. "The matches will be as follows: winner of match 1 will face winner of match 2, and the winner of match 3 will face the winner of match 4. Genma said. "The first match of the second round will be you." He trailed off, remembering something important. A young woman from the crowd sitting at a seat near the fighting area of the arena spoke for him, "Namikaze Naruto." The young woman earned chuckles from some spectators. Genma coughed to get everyone to return their attention to him. "Thank you," he said, looking at the young woman. "The match will be Namikaze Naruto versus Sabaka no Gaara. Now, since Gaara is already here, will Namikaze Naruto step forward, please?" Naruto appeared in the middle of the arena in a burst of flames. "You can begin," Genma said, returning to his seat. Gaara grinned maliciously at Naruto. "Mother has been waiting to feed on your blood." Naruto raised a single brow. It was not the same time he had heard Gaara say mother and blood. He figured it was the Shikaku whispering things to his mind. Given what Zetsu had gathered about Gaara's childhood, it was not surprising that Gaara would give in to Shikaku's influence. I have seen the extent of your power, thus I have no reason to test you myself, Naruto said, not bothering to reply on Gaara's words. I will not hold back, Naruto said. Naruto did hand seals and needed chakra inside body, turning it into fire. Fire release, majestic fire destruction. Naruto expelled a stream of dense flames that ignited upon reaching their target, Gaara. The fire expanded, covering most of the fighting ground of the arena. Naruto held the flames for some time, wanting to see how Gaara's sand would hold on. Gaara was in the middle of dense and intensive sand. A few were starting to fear for his safety. It was like he had been thrown in a pit of flames. Gaara had seen the flames coming and had his sand created a dome of sand around him. The sand held on, but the intense heat of the flames heated his sand and made it unbearable for him. The intense heat inside his sand made it hard for him to breathe. The heat was soaking out the oxygen inside his shell. Naruto stopped his jutsu before he cooked Gaara alive. The flames cleared and Gaara's protective sand crumbled down into dust. Gaara fell on his knees with wide eyes, sweating and trying to catch his breath. Once he had caught his breath, he got up from his knees and stood up. Kage Booth, your Genin certainly is brutal, Hokage done, the Kazekage said. The Sandaime nodded. Yes, he is. Still, I am interested on how he will do against my Gaara, the Kazekage said. I think he will win the match. So far we have only seen him use fire jutsu perfectly, and I don't believe that is all he can do. I believe there is much more we will see from him, the Sandaime replied. Jiraiya nodded, agreeing with his sensei. He heard when Naruto said he would not hold back. He wanted to see what he could do when he was not holding back. The Kazekage said nothing further. He chose to admire Naruto's skills and eyes. Back at the fight, you did well surviving that, Naruto complimented. He felt he needed to do so. No one could take his jutsu not be incarnated. But Gaara had defended himself well against his intense flames. It was worth complimenting. But will you be able to stand after my next assault? Naruto asked rhetorically. His Sharingan morphed into its Manjikyu state. Most who knew of the Manjikyu widened their eyes. To see Naruto wielding the Manjikyu at such a young age was defiantly shocking. Not even Itachi, who was a prodigy and a master of the Sharingan, had awakened his Manjikyu at a young age. The Kazekage's eyes lit yellow for a moment upon seeing the powerful Manjikyu Sharingan. He knew full well what one had to do to awaken it. He had done a lot of research about it. The Manjikyu made him admire Naruto even more than he was currently. He would be so feared if he could have both Sasuke and Naruto by his side. He wondered if Naruto had the Manjikyu when he fought him at the Forest of Death. Naruto crossed his hands on his chest while Gaara just watched him. A blue chakra began to form around him. The chakra became dark blue and took a form of a skeletal humanoid that surrounded Naruto. The beast's head, though skeletal, had dark yellow eyes and a thin skeletal chin. The beast grew to a larger size and unleashed a roar. Its size was enough for Naruto, as he wanted to be able to move freely in the confined space. The beast stretched out both its hands as blue chakra blades formed. Susanoo, Naruto said. Naruto's Susanoo shocked many who had never seen anything like this before. At the Kage booth, the elder shinobi who knew what it was just widened their eyes. The Kazekage chuckled darkly inwardly and sat at the edge of his seat. Jiraiya and the Sandaime did not notice as their eyes were firmly on Naruto. Gaara just continued to watch Naruto emotionlessly with his sand swirling around him. The crowd was awed by what they were seeing. They never expected such a thing from a genin at the Chunin exams. It was like watching a jounin exam, not a couple of genins displaying their strength. My incomplete Susanoo versus your perfect defense. Shall we see which is the stronger? Naruto said to Gaara monotonously. He was not expecting Gaara to answer his question. Even if Gaara wanted to answer, Naruto did not give him a chance as his Susanoo began its charge. The Susanoo swung its right blade towards Gaara. Gaara created a wall of sand on his left to protect himself from the attack. The blade had much power and broke through the defense. Gaara reinforced his defense with more dense sand. This time the blade hit a wall but still pushed him. Naruto's Susanoo swung its left blade at a fast pace towards Gaara. His sand was still holding back the blade on his left, and much of his effort was focused on holding back the other blade. He could not block the next attack. He jumped back, abandoning his sand. The Susanoo's blades returned next to Naruto. Gaara sent a wave of sand towards Naruto. The Susanoo swung its blade and propelled the sand away from it with its blade. The Susanoo fused its blades, making one long blade, and wielded it with its right arm. It swung the blade towards Gaara, who created a dense wall of sand in front of himself to avoid being hit. Naruto's attack broke through the sand and hit Gaara. The power of the attack sent him crashing towards the wall of the arena. Gaara created a large dent on the wall with his crashing. He winced as he felt like Lee had thrown his weights on top of him. The Susanoo brought its left hand, created a fist, sending it towards Gaara. The punch hit Gaara dead on and broke through the wall. Gaara let out a scream of pain as he felt the impact of the huge punch that hit his whole body. His second protective layer of sand was starting to peel off due to the damage his body was taking. The Susanoo dragged Gaara from the wall and dropped him in the middle of the arena. His mouth was pouring out small amounts of blood. While Gaara was still lying down, the Susanoo raised its right hand and slammed Gaara down the ground. The attack created a large crater on the battlefield. The Susanoo did not stop with its attack. It picked up Gaara from the crater and threw him towards the wall. Gaara's gourd burst into sand and created a cushion for him to hit, but he still created a large dent on the wall. All of his sand had now peeled off his skin. His body was heavily bruised and parts of his body were now bleeding also. His breathing had become labored. Had he been a normal person, he would not have been conscious right now. The ferocity of the attacks were too intense for a normal person to take them and remain standing or alive for that matter. Because of his sand, he only had a few broken ribs. Feathers began to fall inside the stadium and the crowd began to fall asleep. Genjutsu, I guess the invasion has started, Naruto said to himself. No sooner than later fights began to break out inside the stadium. Naruto deactivated his Susanoo. When he looked at Gaara, he saw the Genin siblings running away from the stadium with him. He looked at Sasuke and saw the Genin going after them. Naruto shook his head. Gaara was in no condition to fight unless he used Shikaku's chakra. The chakra would heal and make him stronger than he was. Naruto suddenly on his knees under extreme pain. Using Susanoo had its benefits, but it put his body under extreme pain. The pain had lessened from the first time he had used it. With a lot more training he would be able to use it without any pain. Despite his body being the perfect vessel to wield any amount of power, he was still of young age and needed to grow his body into a more mature body. Naruto got up from his knees and found himself surrounded by 10 shinobis. The shinobi smirked at him as if they promised him pain. They were all sound ninjas. Judging from what Naruto could sense from them, they did not seem to be strong. "Do you wish to dance with me?" Naruto asked nonchalantly. He did not wait for a response as his Manjikyu activated. A second later, his Susanoo flared to life. With a single swipe of its blade, the Susanoo blew the Jounins away from Naruto. The sound ninjas were hit hard as they did not have time to react. Naruto had attacked instantly without giving them a chance to ready for his Susanoo's attacks. The Susanoo's size receded and it became a rib cage surrounding Naruto. The shinobis Naruto had attacked got up and prepared to fight Naruto. Naruto sighed, placing his hands on his waist. He was almost embarrassed for thinking that his attack had incapacitated the ninjas. By the clothing the ninjas wore, Naruto could say some of them were Jounins, but their level of strength paled in comparison to the strength of Jounins from Konoha. Naruto deactivated his Susanoo. He flashed through hand seals. Fire style, majestic flame destroyer. Gathering chakra inside his body and turning it into flames, he expelled a large amount of flames that spread out like a wave of water. It was just as big as the one he had used on Neji. It was a good thing for him, as he had never tested the jutsu on many people. One of the Jonins tried protecting himself and his comrades, water style, water encampment wall. He yelled as a wall of water tried putting out the flames. However, the flames spread out wide and were impossible to contain or dodge. One Suiton jutsu could not stop the dense flames. The flames reached the Jonins and began to eat away their flesh. They let out screams of pain as the flames began to incarnate. Naruto just watched impassively as his jutsu incarnated the sound invaders. He turned around and jumped on the roof of the stadium. Looking around, he saw a purple barrier on top of the academy building. Naruto figured that must have been where the leaders of both sides were fighting. Naruto looked carefully inside the barrier and found that it was Orochimaru fighting the Hokage, not the Kazekage. He concluded that Orochimaru had impersonated the Kazekage as he did with the Chunin at the Forest of Death. Naruto was sure the Sandaime could take care of himself even if Orochimaru was his opponent. Despite the Sandaime being old and just a shelf of his former self, he was still capable of defeating even the likes of Senins. He was by no means a pushover because he was old. Naruto acknowledged that fact about the Sandaime was still strong despite his old age. The barrier was set so that no one could enter nor leave. It was a perfect place to fight without annoyances interrupting. At the walls of the village, large snake summons were destroying the village's walls. Konoha shinobi were trying in futile to stop the summons from entering the village. As Konoha shinobi tried holding off the summons, large toad summons puffed into existence and began to wrestle with the snake summons. It was given that Jiraiya had been the one to summon the toads, given that he was the only one who had the toad contract. Naruto activated his Susanoo again. It was still a ribcage surrounding him. He wanted to fight deal with some sound and sand shinobi. Earth style, Mud Dragon. A mud dragon hit Naruto from behind. The jutsu crashed into his Susanoo and sent him crashing down the ground from the rooftop. Naruto was so busy with his thoughts he forgot that he was in the middle of an invasion. Naruto hit the ground and created a larger crater. He was unharmed from the attack. His Susanoo shielded him from being hit by the earth-style jutsu. The Susanoo absorbed any damage Naruto would have suffered. Naruto was sent crashing because the Susanoo was not rooted down to anything but to Naruto. It went everywhere Naruto went. Naruto got up from the small crater unharmed, his Susanoo still protecting him. He looked up at the room to see those who had attacked him. I tend to be careless knowing that my Susanoo is active, guess I should deactivate it, he said to himself. Deactivating would also save him from using too much chakra. Susanoo consumed a lot of chakra from its user. Despite his vast pools of chakra, Naruto was not above acknowledging that keeping a Susanoo activated for longer periods would take a huge bite off his chakra. Two ninjas jumped down from the roof and surrounded him. Naruto did not move at all. His Manjikyu scanned them while his face remained impassive. Orochimaru-sama has some business to attend with you. He wants you to come with us. If you refuse, we will take you by force. That attack earlier was just to show you we can take you by force, the one at Naruto's front said. He wore standard Jounin attire and a sound forehead protector. Oh. Naruto muttered with a raised brow. I would prefer if you refused because I want to see what the great Sharingan can do, the one at Naruto's back said sarcastic while walking into his front. I bet I can take you on by myself, he exclaimed arrogantly. Naruto observed both Jounins. They were stronger than the previous ones and seemed confident of their abilities. However, underestimating the power of the Sharingan was a foolish thing to do. That is rather foolish, Naruto said, turning his one visible eye to the Jounin who dared to mock his jujitsu. Foolish? Naruto gave no response. He pointed at the Jounin, Tsukuyami. The sound Jounin found himself warped into another world. The world he was in was bloody red and black. Even the sky was all red and black. All sides to be just endless void of red and black. Under his feet, a giant eye in the same form as Naruto's Manjikyu Sharingan appeared. The look of the eye was menacing, cold, and devoid of any emotions. The eye brought fear to the Jounin. He was suddenly pulled up into the air with both his hands stretched. He was nailed on a cross. Naruto appeared before the Jounin. His face still showed no emotion. With his right hand he had a black blade which he pointed straight at the Jounin. "This is my world, and here I control everything, I see everything. For 72 hours, I will put you through an uncomfortable situation because of your arrogance," Naruto said, his tone devoid of any emotion. "This eye is not happening, it's just a genjutsu." The sound Jounin yelled. Naruto responded by piercing the man on his chest again and again. The Jounin screamed in agony at the pain he felt. Naruto's blade entered his body second by second without mercy. No blood dripped from his body, as the blade did not leave a wound. The sound Jounin stopped screaming after a few hours. Naruto canceled his jutsu. In the real world, the Jounin Naruto had put under Tsukuyomi fell down to the ground unconscious. Only a second had passed in the real world. Tsukuyomi is the most powerful genjutsu in existence. Only those from the Uchiha clan to have awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan can perform it. The torture done in the world of Tsukuyomi affected the mind-bringing psychological trauma which was almost impossible to cure unless one was a medical expert. It only required eye contact to be casted. However, it consumed a lot of chakra and put a lot of strain on his left eye, which he used to cast the powerful genjutsu. He only lasted for 32 hours, Naruto said to himself. The other Jounin bent down to his friend, seeing him fall. He touched his neck and felt his beat, albeit barely. He turned and faced Naruto, glaring at him with all the anger he could will. His best friend was down and he did not know what had happened to him. What he knew was that Naruto must have been there one to harm his friend. "What did you do to him?" he demanded. Naruto was unfazed by the anger of his opponent. Nevertheless, he did answer the question. "I tortured him," he replied simply as if it was insignificant. The Jounin gritted his teeth in anger. "You little bastard, I will make sure you pay from this," he said, forgetting his mission. He took out a kunai and rushed at Naruto blindly in anger. He tried stabbing Naruto with his kunai several times, but Naruto dodged the sluggish attacks. The man was blinded by his fury that he could no longer fight at his level best. Naruto disdained weak-minded fools of shinobi who could not control their emotions. As the sound Jounin grew frustrated, his anger reached new heights. He could explode at any moment as his frustrations added to his anger. Naruto made eye contact with the Jounin, Sharingan, genjutsu. He trapped the man in a genjutsu. He hated fighting enemies who had no fight in them. It was a waste of his time and efforts. The sound Jounin found himself trapped in another world. The world sky reflected a rather huge version of Naruto's Manjikyu Sharingan. This made the world appear blood-red. The sound Jounin quickly realized that it must have been genjutsu. However, before he could try to dispel it, a monstrous shadow with 9 tails appeared before him. The Kyuubi stepped forward slowly in a menacing form. Its large bangs glared at the Jounin and its blood-red eyes looked through his very soul. He thought it was a genjutsu, but he could defiantly feel powerful and hateful aura the Kyuubi emitted. The fear that had gripped him felt like it was real. What's going on here?" he stuttered in fear. In response, the Kyuubi grinned darkly, making the Jounin shudder at the dark grin. It was far scarier than he had seen from Orochimaru when he was excited about something. "Kai!" The Jounin yelled, "Kai!" The genjutsu did not disappear. It was not an easy genjutsu to break if one was not adept to genjutsu. Naruto had hit a jackpot. The Jounin he had caught with his genjutsu was not adept to genjutsu. The genjutsu Naruto used was his only genjutsu aside of Tsukuyomi. Like any other genjutsu, this genjutsu trapped a person inside an illusion. Despite it being easy to detect because of the change of scenery, it was hard to break. The genjutsu was similar to demonic illusions. Instead of showing people what they feared to cause trauma to victims, Naruto's genjutsu fed on the fear of a person. The more a victim became fearful, the harder it became to break. It had a time limit of a single minute. The Kyuubi rushed towards the sound Jounin. It raised its paw and attempted to squash the Jounin. The sound Nin was in a state of shock as he was trying to figure out what was happening to him. He thought he was under a genjutsu, but it did not dispel when he tried to disrupt chakra inside his body. Still, he held little hope that it was still a genjutsu. He watched as the Kyuubi's paw hit him, compelling him down the ground. It held him there, leaving only his upper body visible. Its head closed the distance with him. He could perfectly see those cold blood-red eyes. The Kyuubi held the man and threw him up. It opened its mouth, waiting for the man to fall into its mouth so it could devour him. The sound Jounin eyes widened when he saw that he was falling straight into the Kyuubi's mouth. He let out a scream of fear as he kicked in flight, trying to move away so that the Kyuubi did not devour him. His attempts were fruitless as he continued to fall directly into the wide mouth of a beast that struck fear into anyone who came across its path. His body began to tremble as the thought of death sneaked into his mind. He did not want to die. He feared death despite the fact that as a shinobi he saw death each day of his life. "Help me! Someone please!" He yelled in despair, but help did not come. The Kyuubi got its meal and chewed it gracefully. The sound Jounin thought he was dead, but was surprised to find himself alive. His relief was cut short as he saw the Kyuubi rushing towards him. He began to run away from the beast in despair. Though he did not feel any pain, he was experiencing any emotion he would feel if he had come across a situation such as this one in real life. Everything felt real, it was just that he felt no physical pain, but emotionally he was damaged. The Kyuubi finally caught up with him and tore his body apart piece by piece while he screamed, wishing for death, but none came. The process repeated 5 times before the Kyuubi stopped as the Jounin's wife and daughter appeared before him. He could only mouth what he wanted to say as his voice had abandoned him. Nevertheless, his family did not hear him. The Kyuubi devoured them again and again while he watched. It was the most horrifying thing he could see. He felt lost without knowing what to do. His family was being killed over and over again while he watched. He could not say it was a genjutsu as everything felt real. He dropped to his knees as the situation threw him into true despair. He no longer hoped that he could escape from the nightmare. However, he kept mouthing, "Please stop. Please stop," as tears poured out of his eyes. He closed his eyes, and when he opened them, he saw Naruto staring at him. He looked at his trembling eyes, and then around he saw that they had returned to Konoha. Naruto appeared closer to him and whispered into his ear, "Run away. Tell Orochimaru that I refuse to follow him. Should he persist, I will find a way to kill him sooner than I would like." The sound Jounin nodded vigorously while trembling and crying. Despite his condition, he crawled away from Naruto. A minute later, Naruto sensed something behind him. When he turned around, a foot crashed into his face. The kick sent him flying away. Naruto regained control over his body, flipped in midair, and landed down the ground with legs touching first, then his hands. The kick was hard and had a lot of power behind him. Naruto had been unable to dodge due to the speed and unable to block because he was also off guard. Naruto recognized the man who had kicked him as Baki, Gaara-sensei. Another thing he took notice of was that the man was avoiding eye contact with him. Baki had seen what was going on with the different battlefields. He did not like what he had seen. Konoha was winning the invasion. It seemed that they had prepared like they knew they were going to invade. If Gaara had been taking part, it would not have mattered. But there was another thing he could do to ensure that things went his way: kidnapping the son of the Yondaime Hokage. Unlike any other children of past and present Hokages, Naruto was different. Konoha loved the Yondaime more than they loved first Hokage. Capturing Naruto would force Konoha to give in to their demands. They would not dare try to abandon the only child of their greatest hero. If word got out that they had abandoned the son of the Yellow Flash, it would certainly take a huge bite off their image and economical structure. Very few villages would want to associate them if they abandoned him. Baki smiled inwardly. His plan was indigenous. You will come with me, Baki said in a commanding tone. He said it, still avoiding making eye contact with Naruto's eyes. No, Naruto replied as his Sharingan returned to normal. Keeping his Manjikyu activated while not using any of the Manjikyu's abilities would only tire him out. I guess I have no choice then but to take you by force, Baki said and blurred out of sight. He appeared in front of Naruto and attempted to punch him. Naruto blocked the punch with both his hands. Baki swung his right foot high trying to kick Naruto. Naruto brought out both his hands to block the kick. The power behind the kick pushed Naruto back a few feet. Baki suddenly appeared in front of Naruto with his right foot raised. He attempted to kick Naruto on his chest. Naruto blocked the kick by both his hands as he could not dodge despite being able to predict what Baki was going to do. The power of the kick sent Naruto flying away. Naruto regained his balance and touched the ground with his hands and legs so that he could stop. Naruto rose up and looked at Baki. The man was considerably strong. He was worthy of being a sensei to a Jinchuriki. Fighting someone like him without his Manjikyu active would prove to be a nasty thing for him. Before Naruto activated his Manjikyu, Kakashi and Guy appeared in front of him, both in battle stances. Naruto, you go after Sasuke, he went after Gaara. Shikamaru, Chuji, Kiba, Shino and Neji have already gone after him, but I think they will need your help, Kakashi said. We will deal with this one, Guy nodded. Yes, Naruto-kun, let your flames of youth burn brightly by saving your comrades. Naruto turned around. Fine, he said. Oh Naruto, before you go, take this, Kakashi said, handing Naruto a small piece of paper with a seal written on it. I got it from Jiraiya-sama. It's a suppression seal. It should be able to suppress Gaara's chakra should he try to use his Bijuu's chakra. Kakashi said, smiling at Naruto. Naruto took the seal and disappeared out of sight. Baki could have tried to follow him, but in front of him were two of Konoha's most powerful jounin. He could not get just past them. Guy was the fastest and Kakashi had the Sharingan and a number of jutsus in his arsenal. He prided himself in his strength, but taking on both the famed copy ninja and the green beast was a bit too much even for him. Let's go, Guy, Kakashi said, to which Guy nodded and both men charged at the Sand Jounin. A few minutes later Naruto was running at top speed outside the walls of Konoha. By the direction in which the Sand siblings took he could pinpoint their general location. He would be able to find them given that there would surely be battles. Sasuke and the others would defiantly be fighting the Sand Genins. If Sasuke was not there they would not to fight, but Sasuke did whatever he wanted so he would not listen even if his comrades told him not to fight. On his way outside the walls of Konoha, Naruto had seen Jiraiya battling against several shinobis from Sunagakure and the Sound Village. Despite the numbers, being against him, Jiraiya was devouring his opponents with ease. It was not a surprising thing for Naruto to see. Jiraiya was indeed powerful despite that he was no longer in his prime. The man was already above 50 and still fought like he was 20 years old. Still, despite Jiraiya's impressive power, he was nowhere near the level of power Madara and Hashirama held. Naruto sensed a Bijuu's chakra around the forest he was currently headed towards and increased his pace. If Gaara was using Shikaku's power, it meant that he was in a position to fight at the highest level. A Jinchuriki using his Bijuu's chakra was not someone any normal person could fight on equal ground. A Jinchuriki fighting using his Bijuu's chakra can take on wounds that would immobile anyone and continue to fight as if nothing happened. A few minutes later Naruto arrived at the location his fellow genins were fighting. A sound of chirping birds was welcomed into his ears. Naruto stopped on top of a tree and observed what was going on. He watched as Sasuke rushed at Gaara with his right arm palm sparkling electricity. Sasuke was covered by flame-like patterns all over his body. Sasuke had activated his cursed seal to be able to fight Gaara. Gaara had materialized a tail and a large right hand. They were features of Shikaku, but Gaara had willed them. It was not that Shikaku was trying to take control over Gaara. Gaara was very much in control, and with the creepy smile on his face one could tell he was enjoying himself. Sasuke attempted to pierce through Gaara's chest, but Gaara brought out his mini Shikaku hand and blocked the jutsu. The power of the jutsu cut through Gaara's hand, but did not reach his chest. Sasuke gritted his teeth and tried to get away from Gaara. However, before he could, Gaara's tail was swung, hitting the Uchiha on his chest, sending him crashing towards the trees. Gaara's hand reformed again as he laughed maniacally. More. More. Come at me with everything you have. Gaara yelled like a mentally unstable person. His bloodthirsty nature had taken complete control over him. Gaara ran toward Sasuke and hit him on his chest. Sasuke groaned as he was compelled to the tree, almost breaking it in half. Gaara grinned evilly as he picked up Sasuke by his transformed hand. His other hand began to pummel Sasuke continuously. After a few minutes, Sasuke's flame-like patterns receded back to the cursed mark of heaven. Gaara kicked Sasuke into the air and waited for Sasuke fall on his path so he could kick the Uchiha again. Just when Sasuke was about to be kicked, Naruto appeared in front of Gaara and kicked the Tsunejinin in the face, sending him flying. Sasuke hit the ground with a thud. Nevertheless, he quickly got up and glared dangerously at Naruto. "What are you doing?" Sasuke asked rhetorically. "I don't need your help, I can take him by myself," Sasuke said. Naruto looked the young Uchiha and took a step towards the young Uchiha. What he was seeing picked up his interest. "Ho, you finally matured your Sharingan," Naruto said, stretching his left hand towards Sasuke's face. Sasuke made no attempt to try and get out of the way. Naruto touched Sasuke's forehead, making Sasuke recall the times Itachi used to poke him on his forehead. Sasuke took a step back as the thoughts of Itachi invaded his mind. Itachi's name always and thoughts always brought a darker side of him. Naruto's hand closed Sasuke's eyes. Sasuke was consumed by his thoughts to think of what Naruto might try to do to him. Naruto swung his right hand and hit Sasuke at the back of his neck, knocking the Uchiha out. Sasuke fell down to the ground with a thud. Naruto did not attempt to catch him. "Hey Naruto!" A voice called out behind Naruto. Naruto recognized the voice as Shikamaru's. "We will take care of Sasuke, you handle Gaara," Shikamaru said. He was standing under a tree with Kiba, Neji, and Shino. Kiba seemed to be wounded, though not badly enough to threaten his life. Temari and Kankuro were tied together next to the Konoha Genins. Naruto said nothing. He jumped up onto a tree branch and looked at Gaara. Taking a fight with another Jinchuriki would not be good for his health if he did not fight seriously. He had been fighting for too long now and had used high-level jutsus, including the chakra-consuming Susanoo and Tsukuyumi. He was not running out of chakra, he just knew that it would end up nasty for him fighting a Jinchuriki for a prolonged time. He was also a Jinchuriki, but he never used the Kyuubi's chakra. He never used it all when fighting. Naruto chose to fight with his own power. The main problem was that Gaara could turn into Shikaku. If Gaara did succeed in taking the form of the Ichibi, it would prove to be nasty. Nevertheless, should he be fighting with Kyuubi's chakra, he would not have to worry about anything. The Kyuubi was the strongest of all the Bijus. It would be damning to his pride to lose to any Jinchuriki when he had the strongest Biju sealed inside of him. Naruto activated his Manjikyu, preparing to fight with the Sand Jinchuriki. He needed to go all out from the beginning to end the fight at a short time. "Naruto," Gaara called with a dark look spread across his face, "Mother wants me to devour you for what you did earlier to me, and so I will. Your blood smells good to me, I can tell it is delicious," Gaara said and ran towards Naruto. Gaara tried slashing Naruto's chest horizontally with his claw. Naruto was able to predict the attempt, thus he sidestepped. He was still faster than Gaara, which made it easy for Naruto to dodge Gaara's attack. Naruto caught Gaara's left hand and spun around twice, picking up speed. He threw Gaara and sent him crashing towards the tree. Gaara recovered rather quickly and jumped at Naruto again. He was faster than before. His clawed fist crashed into a tree branch Naruto was standing on and shattered it. Naruto had jumped up, not intending to try and block the attack. The power behind the strike would have proved that blocking was useless. Naruto blurred out of sight and appeared behind Gaara. He was going for a kick from behind, but Gaara's tail stood in the way. The tail swung and hit Naruto with enough power to send him crashing down the ground. There was nothing more annoying than getting hit by something you could see. His Sharingan was able to predict the attack, but in the position he was in, he was unable to dodge the attack. Gaara turned around and grinned madly. "Where's all that power you had? I want to see it again. Show it to me," Gaara said as he jumped to where Naruto had fallen. Naruto stood up and did a hand seal, fire style, great fireball. Naruto expelled the chakra inside his body he had turned into fire. The fireball he breathed out rushed towards the oncoming Gaara. Gaara brought out his tail and clawed arm to shield himself. The flame's intense heat burned Gaara's materialized arm and tail, melting it. The materialized parts in Gaara's body crumbled down like sand. Gaara fell onto the ground with his legs. Ha 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 ha, he started laughing like a maniac. "That's the power I want to see. I want more of it," he said, growing another tail and 2 hands. Naruto saw this and knew that it was a matter of time before Gaara turned into Shikaku. Gaara took off at a very fast pace and appeared in front of Naruto. Gaara swung his right hand, attempting to hit Naruto. Naruto blocked the hit and attempted to hit Gaara, but the Jinchuriki blocked his attempt with his left hand. Gaara caught Naruto's right foot and threw the blonde away. Naruto was sent crashing towards the trees by Gaara. Naruto groaned as he tried getting up, but before his attempt could be a success, Gaara appeared above him. Both Gaara's clawed hands were speeding down towards him. Naruto could only bring both his hands to block. The power of the strike resulted in making his attempt to block useless. The double hand punch grounded Naruto. Gaara jumped up, attempting to squash Naruto under his feet. This time was able to escape Gaara's strike. Gaara hit the ground with his legs, created a large crater. "That would have been nasty if I got hit," Naruto said to himself. Gaara raised both his clawed hands, pointing at Naruto. He began to shoot sand bullets at Naruto. Naruto jumped around the trees, dodging the sand bullets. Gaara only increased the number of bullets he fired at Naruto. He was laughing maniacally as he was enjoying watching Naruto dance around. It was quite an amusing scene for him to watch. A dark blue ribcage surrounded Naruto, protecting him from Gaara's bullets. The Susanoo blocked all of Gaara's sand bullets Naruto was unable to dodge. Gaara finally stopped, allowing Naruto a chance to catch his breath. Naruto deactivated his Manjikyu and prepared for another round. The Sand siblings watched their brother fight against the son of the Yondaime Hokage. He had defeated Gaara before, but when Gaara became what he was now, he was almost impossible to defeat. It was why they did not want to be close to the battlefield, or else they would also be caught in the crossfire. However, there was nothing they could do since the opposition who defeated them had tied them and were currently standing behind them watching the fight. Temari admired the strength Naruto showed at the stadium. However, watching the fight now, Naruto was at the defensive while Gaara was on the attack. She was begging to think that he would not be able to pull off a victory this time. Naruto channeled chakra into his feet for more speed. He suddenly disappeared and appeared in front of Gaara. He punched Gaara on his gut with a powerful punch. He proceeded to punch Gaara at his face several times before jumping up. Naruto swung his right leg towards Gaara. The leg connected with Gaara's face, sending him crashing towards the trees. Naruto landed gracefully on the ground, panting slightly. He held a hand seal and converted the chakra needed inside his body into fire style, flame dragon caterwaul. Naruto said as he expelled 5 small flame dragons. The dragons sped towards Gaara. They were set to explode upon hitting their targets. 4 hit Gaara's arms and 1 hit Gaara's tail. All 3 materialized body parts exploded into flames. Gaara let loose of a pain scream because of the explosion. "I refuse to be beaten," Gaara yelled out as he leaked considerable amount of demonic chakra. An explosion of chakra rocketed around him. Naruto remained calm despite knowing the dangers that was knocking. It was of no good losing calm because things were not looking good. If anything, losing calm made a person make rush decisions, resulting in mistakes that one would not have made had he remained calm. Naruto watched as the debris cleared. Gaara had transformed into a chibi Shikaku. Naruto created a wood clone and sent it towards the mini Shikaku. The wood clone sped towards Gaara and engaged him in a fight. While the clone kept Gaara busy, Naruto converted chakra inside his body into dense and intense fire going through hand seals. Fire style, majestic fire destruction. Naruto said as he expelled a stream of intense flames towards Gaara. The clone was to keep Gaara busy while Naruto performed his jutsu so that it could not get away. The stream of fire hit Gaara and the clone, setting them ablaze. Both were engulfed in a sea of flames of intense heat. The fire spread out wide, incarnating everything it touched. Naruto knew Gaara would not be incarnated by the fire because of his form. His real body was inside of the beast he had become. The chibi Shikaku was like an armor. The flames would only burn the armor. Naruto stopped his jutsu and watched as the mini Shikaku crumbled down into dust, leaving a slightly burned Gaara. The Sand Genin was breathing heavily and his shirt was burned off his body, leaving him bare-chested. Gaara began to leak large amounts of demonic chakra that would make anyone run away for their lives. Naruto knew what was coming. He could not put Gaara under Tsukuyomi, as psychological trauma to Gaara would only free Shikaku since Gaara's mind was already unstable. He was forced to use the chakra suppression seal Kakashi had given him. Naruto rushed to appear in front of Gaara. He took out the piece of paper and placed it on Gaara's forehead. The chakra Gaara was leaking disappeared. Gaara fell down with a thud on his back. Naruto followed his example by following down on his knees. He breathed heavily for a minute before standing up again. Shikamaru and the others started to walk over to Naruto with their prisoners, seeing that Gaara was down. Sasuke too walked with them since he had already come to after Naruto had knocked him out. He was very angry when he woke up, but a thought sneaked into his mind. He decided to take up that thought to make up for being knocked out by Naruto. I lost, again, Gaara said weakly to himself. His eyes traveled weakly towards Naruto. How are you stronger than me? He asked, surprisingly calm for someone who was like a maniac. I train harder than you, Naruto replied, but I have been once told that you can be truly powerful when you fight to protect your precious people. Precious people? People you care about, Naruto responded. Fighting to protect your precious people? Is that why you are strong? I already told you, I am strong because I train hard to become strong. As for my precious people, they are all dead, Naruto replied nonchalantly. I must praise you for your strength. Had you fully transformed into Shikaku, I would have lost. Naruto said, his left eye narrowing behind him as he sensed several chakra signatures from behind. He turned around and raised a brow, seeing a wide grin from Sasuke. Shikamaru was the first to speak. Are you all right, Naruto? Shikamaru asked with a bit of concern in his voice. He saw Naruto fall to his knees and just wanted to make sure he was all right. Naruto nodded. Yes, just a bit worn out, he replied, his eyes going back to Sasuke. I see, you copied my majestic fire destruction, Naruto guessed correctly. Sasuke's grin only widened. What do we do about them? Neji asked him, referring to the Sand siblings. It is only logical that we take them back to Konoha, given that they are children of the Kazekage. They would prove to be essential in future negotiations with Tsunagakure, Shino said, keeping his calm demeanor. I agree with Shino, Shikamaru said, his tone having gone back to his usual lazy tone. No, Naruto said, getting the attention of everyone. Free them and allow them to return home, Naruto said. Who are you to tell us what to do? And Shino makes a good point. Why should we do what you say? Kiba fumed out of nowhere. However, Naruto blissfully ignored him. The other genins gave Naruto a question look. The Kazekage is probably dead, Naruto said, making Kankuro and Temari's eyes widen. The Kazekage who was at the Chunin exam finals was not the Kazekage but rather Orochimaru impersonating the Kazekage. When Suna realized that their leader was killed, they will abandon the sound and return home. Shino nodded along with Shikamaru, assuming that Orochimaru had manipulated Suna to believe that he was the Kazekage after having killed the real Kazekage. It is highly unlikely that Konoha will take any action against Suna. Shikamaru spoke his thoughts. They untied the two Tide-san siblings. Temari gave Naruto a grateful smile, which Naruto did not return, making the girl frown. She tried her best not to let her temper get the best of her. She hated being ignored, especially by someone she was trying to show that she was grateful to. However, in her current situation she could do nothing. Naruto disappeared away from the group, making his way back to Konoha. Temari and Kankuro picked up Gaara and headed towards the Wind Country. After they had made a distance between themselves with the Konoha group, Gaara said two words that made his siblings almost cry. "I'm sorry." With Naruto. A few minutes later, Naruto reached the walls of Konoha. He looked around and saw that the fighting had already stopped. He had sensed multiple chakra signatures making their way away from Konohagakure when he was returning to the village. The wounded were being treated by many medical ninjas within the walls of the village. The barrier that was set on top of the academy had disappeared also. Naruto disappeared to the Shinobi district. He wanted to allow his body to rest. He did not really care about any other details. What mattered most was that Konoha had won the invasion.
That's it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and follow me on my other social media accounts. Anime God here, and I'm signing off.